8-year-old Mia Thompson had been fighting acute lymphoblastic leukemia for 14 months when her mother, Rebecca, made the decision that would change everything. The doctors at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia had gently explained that despite aggressive chemotherapy, radiation treatments, and an experimental drug trial, Mia's cancer had spread too far and too fast. They had perhaps 3 weeks left together, and it was time to focus on making those weeks as meaningful and joyful as possible. "What do you want to do, sweetheart?" Rebecca had asked her daughter as they sat in the quiet of Mia's hospital room, surrounded by get-well cards, stuffed animals, and the medical equipment that had become part of their daily landscape. "If you could do anything in the world, what would make you happiest?" Mia, who had been unusually quiet since receiving the news that her treatments weren't working, looked up at her mother with the kind of mature wisdom that children facing terminal illness sometimes develop. "I want to see Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran sing together," she said simply, "like, at the same time, in the same room." Rebecca felt her heart break a little more. Of all the wishes her daughter could have made, trips to Disney World, meeting princesses, swimming with dolphins, Mia had chosen something that seemed almost impossible to arrange. She wanted to see two of the world's biggest music stars perform together, privately, for an audience of one dying child. Why those two specifically? Rebecca asked gently, though she already knew the answer. Mia's hospital room playlist had been dominated by Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran for months. She fell asleep to "Thinking Out Loud" and woke up to 22. During her worst days of treatment, when nausea and pain made everything else unbearable, she would listen to "Perfect" and "Love Story" on repeat until she could manage to smile again. "Because Taylor Swift makes me feel like I can be anything," Mia explained with the clarity that 8-year-olds sometimes achieve when discussing the things that matter most to them. "And Ed Sheeran makes me feel like everything will be okay. If I could hear them sing together before I go to heaven, I think I would be ready." Rebecca had been documenting Mia's cancer journey on social media as a way to update family and friends and to process her own emotions about watching her daughter fight for her life. That evening, she posted a photo of Mia listening to music in her hospital bed, along with a heartfelt message. "My brave girl Mia has been battling leukemia for over a year. Today we learned that we have perhaps 3 weeks left together. Her final wish is to hear at Taylor Swift and at Ed Sheeran sing together. I know this is a long shot, but if anyone has connections or ideas about how to make this happen, please share." Music has been her medicine through this whole journey, and these two artists have given her more joy than she can express. #MiaStrong, #FinalWish, #Taylor Swift, #Sheeran. The post was initially shared by family members and friends, reaching a few hundred people who knew Mia's story. But something about the combination of a child's innocent final wish and the specific request to see two beloved artists perform together began to resonate with people who had never met the Thompson family. The post was shared, then shared again, spreading through networks of parents, music fans, and people who were moved by the idea of granting a dying child's last wish. Within 24 hours, #MiaStrong was trending on Twitter. The post had been shared over 50,000 times, with thousands of comments from people around the world expressing support, sharing their own stories of children battling cancer, and tagging Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran in hopes of getting their attention. Musicians, celebrities, and influencers began amplifying Mia's story. Country music stars, pop artists, and even classical musicians shared Rebecca's post, adding their voices to the chorus of people hoping that two of music's biggest names would see a little girl's final wish. But the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jamie Hartman, a songwriter who had worked with both Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran on various projects over the years, saw the viral post and immediately picked up his phone. "Taylor," he said when she answered, "I need to tell you about something that's happening on social media right now." Taylor Swift was in her Nashville studio, working on new material, when Jamie explained Mia's situation. He sent her the link to Rebecca's post, and Taylor found herself crying as she read about an 8-year-old girl whose final wish was to see her perform with Ed Sheeran. "How do we make this happen?" was Taylor's immediate response. "Is Ed available? Can we get to Philadelphia? What does this little girl need from us?" Jamie was already texting Ed Sheeran, who was in London but had been following the story as it gained traction on social media. Ed's response was equally immediate. "When do we need to be there?" What followed was 48 hours of the kind of logistical coordination usually reserved for major concert tours or diplomatic summits. Taylor's team worked with Ed's management to coordinate flights, security, hospital protocols, and the complex arrangements necessary for two global superstars to visit a children's hospital unannounced. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Mia's oncologist, was initially skeptical about allowing such a high-profile visit. "Mia is very weak," she explained to Taylor's representatives. "She's on significant pain medication, and her immune system is compromised. This can't be a media circus or a long, exhausting event." "We understand completely," Taylor's manager replied. "This isn't about publicity. Taylor and Ed want to spend time with Mia privately, maybe play a few songs, and give her the experience she's hoping for. No cameras, unless the family wants them, no media. Just two musicians visiting a little girl who loves music." Rebecca Thompson received the call on a Tuesday evening while she was helping Mia eat dinner, or trying to, since appetite had become one of many things the cancer had stolen from her daughter. "Mrs. Thompson, this is going to sound unbelievable, but this is Jennifer calling from Taylor Swift's management team. Taylor and Ed Sheeran would like to visit Mia tomorrow afternoon if that works for you and the medical team." Rebecca dropped the phone. "Mommy?" Mia asked weakly. "What's wrong? You look funny." "Nothing's wrong, baby," Rebecca managed, picking up the phone again. "Something wonderful just happened." The next afternoon, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia experienced the kind of controlled chaos that happens when two of the world's most famous musicians arrive simultaneously for a secret visit. Security was discreet but thorough. Hospital staff had signed confidentiality agreements, and even the other families in the pediatric wing had been quietly asked to respect the privacy of a special visit happening on the 8th floor. Mia had been having a difficult morning. The pain medication made her nauseous, she was too weak to sit up for long periods, and the reality of her situation had been weighing heavily on her, despite her usual optimistic attitude. Rebecca had been wondering if they should cancel the visit, worried that Mia might not be alert enough to enjoy it. But when Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran walked into room 847, carrying acoustic guitars and wearing the kind of casual clothes that suggested they were there as people rather than performers, Mia's eyes lit up with an energy Rebecca hadn't seen in weeks. "Are you really here?" Mia whispered, her voice hoarse from medication and weakness but filled with wonder. "Are you really Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran?" "We're really here," Taylor said gently, sitting down in the chair beside Mia's bed. "Your mom told us that you wanted to hear us sing together, and we couldn't think of anything we'd rather do today." Ed pulled up a chair on the other side of the bed, setting his guitar case down and smiling at Mia with the warmth that had made him beloved by fans around the world. "Plus, we heard you have excellent taste in music," he said with a grin. "Anyone who loves both Taylor and me clearly knows good songs when she hears them." For the next 3 hours, Mia Thompson received a private concert that no amount of money could have purchased. Taylor and Ed performed acoustic versions of their solo hits, but more importantly, they created spontaneous duets that existed only in that hospital room, for an audience of one 8-year-old girl who was living her final dream. They began with Perfect, with Ed playing guitar, while both he and Taylor sang the harmonies they had never performed together before. Mia's face was radiant as she listened to two of her favorite voices blending in ways she had only imagined. "This is even better than I dreamed," Mia whispered during a pause between songs. "You sound so beautiful together." "You know what?" Taylor said, looking at Ed and then back at Mia. "We've never actually performed this song together before today. You're hearing something completely new, something that exists just for you." They moved through Mia's request list, Love Story, with Ed adding guitar accompaniment and harmony vocals that transformed the familiar song into something intimate and magical. thinking out loud, with Taylor providing counter melodies that elevated Ed's romantic ballad into a celebration of all kinds of love, including the love between parents and children facing impossible circumstances. But the most powerful moment came when Mia asked if they could sing, quote, "something happy that will help me not be scared." Taylor and Ed looked at each other, and without discussing it, they began an impromptu version of 22 that Ed had never performed before, but picked up instinctively. They adapted the lyrics on the spot to be about being 8 years old and brave and surrounded by people who loved her. "I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22" became, "I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 8 and true," with verses about being strong and loved and ready for whatever came next. Mia clapped weakly along, and by the end of the song, she was smiling more broadly than she had in weeks. "Can I ask you guys something?" Mia said as the afternoon began to wind down. "When I go to heaven, will there be music there?" Taylor felt her throat tighten with emotion, but she managed to answer. "I think heaven is full of the most beautiful music you can imagine, Mia. And I think all your favorite songs will be there waiting for you. But also," Ed added gently, "the music you love here on earth will always be with the people who love you. Every time your mom hears one of our songs, she'll remember this afternoon and how happy you looked." Mia nodded solemnly, processing this information with the seriousness that children bring to discussions about life and death. "Will you remember me when you sing these songs in your concerts?" she asked. "Every single time," Taylor promised, tears visible in her eyes. "Every time I perform any of these songs, I'll remember a brave 8-year-old girl named Mia who taught me something important about what music is really for." Before they left, Taylor and Ed recorded a special video message for Mia to keep, singing a gentle acoustic version of "You've Got a Friend" that they dedicated specifically to her. They left their guitars with her as gifts, along with handwritten letters that Rebecca would read to her daughter during the difficult days ahead. But perhaps most meaningfully, they made a promise that would extend far beyond their visit. "Mia," Taylor said as they prepared to leave, "Ed and I want to do something to honor how brave you are and how much music has meant to you during your fight. Would it be okay if we started a program to bring live music to other kids who are in the hospital like you?" Mia's eyes lit up. "Really, you would do that?" "We're going to call it Mia's Music," Ed said. "And every time we perform for kids in hospitals, we'll tell them about an 8-year-old girl who showed us how powerful music can be." Mia passed away peacefully 6 days later, surrounded by her family and listening to a playlist that included every song Taylor and Ed had performed for her, along with the special recording they had made just for her. At her funeral, both Taylor and Ed appeared quietly, sitting in the back of the church and providing comfort through their presence rather than their celebrity. They performed Amazing Grace as a duet during the service, their voices carrying the grief and love of everyone who had been touched by Mia's courage. The Mia's Music program launched 3 months later with performances at children's hospitals in Nashville, London, and Philadelphia. Taylor and Ed committed to visiting pediatric cancer wards regularly, not as publicity events, but as ongoing tributes to a little girl who had reminded them why they became musicians in the first place. "Mia taught us that music isn't just entertainment," Taylor said at the program's launch event. "It's medicine. It's hope. It's a way for people to feel less alone during the hardest times in their lives. Every child we visit through this program is carrying Mia's spirit with them." The program grew to include dozens of other musicians who volunteered their time to perform for hospitalized children. But every performance began the same way, with Taylor or Ed or one of their partner artists explaining that they were there because of Mia Thompson, an 8-year-old girl whose final wish had been to hear beautiful music, and whose legacy was ensuring that other children would have access to that same comfort. Years later, when journalists asked Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran about their most meaningful musical collaborations, they would both mention the afternoon they spent in room 847 of Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Not because it was their most technically impressive performance, but because it was the one that most clearly demonstrated music's power to provide comfort, joy, and connection during life's most difficult moments. The guitars they left with Mia were eventually donated to the hospital's music therapy program, where they continued to bring comfort to children facing their own battles with serious illness. A small plaque on each instrument reads, "In memory of Mia Thompson, who knew that music makes everything better." Rebecca Thompson, who became an advocate for pediatric cancer research and childhood music therapy programs, often spoke about the afternoon when two global superstars spent 3 hours making her dying daughter feel like the most important person in the world. They didn't just grant Mia's wish, Rebecca would say. They showed her, and they showed me, that when we're facing the impossible, there are still people who will drop everything to remind us that we're not alone. Mia went to heaven knowing that the world is full of people who care about children like her, and that legacy of kindness is something that will live forever. The final entry in Mia's hospital journal, dictated to her mother the day before she died, read, "Today I learned that angels sometimes look like famous singers, and that the most beautiful music happens when people love each other enough to share songs. Thank you, Taylor and Ed, for making my last wish come true, and for showing me that heaven must be full of music if people like you exist on earth." Sometimes the most profound performances happen not on grand stages before thousands of fans, but in quiet hospital rooms for audiences of one brave child who needs to know that beauty still exists in the world. Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran's decision to travel across oceans to grant Mia's final wish demonstrated that true artistry isn't measured by album sales or concert attendance, but by the willingness to use music as medicine for those who need healing most. Their 3-hour concert for Mia became the foundation for a program that would bring comfort to thousands of other children, proving that when we respond to genuine need with genuine love, the impact extends far beyond any single moment of kindness.